Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting of Sweetwater County Board of County Commissioners this Tuesday, December 21st, 2021 to order. A quorum is present, although Commissioner Smith is excused. Please join me with the stand and join me for a pledge of allegiance and then stay standing for a moment of silence. Pledge of allegiance. Thank you. First thing I'd like to say, I do appreciate the respect that's shown through a moment of silence. I don't know if there's ever a time throughout our country where we need to hopefully bring some comfort to what's happening in our law enforcement and our service corps and what people are doing to try to keep this country together. There's no greater time than now, and I appreciate everybody showing that respect and also the many families that you have in your lives. So that you can think about. So I just want to say thank you. First up is a order of business is approval of our agenda. Commissioners, your requests.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd.
I'd like to propose we make an amendment to the agenda and add discussion on county fire in the other spot.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the agenda to, under other, have a discussion regarding county fire.
Mr. Chairman, I would second that.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? Specific purpose, maybe, Mr. Lloyd?
What's that?
Specifically anything or just general conversation?
Well, kind of a follow-up from our meeting last night where we discussed that we would put that on there to discuss maybe what we need to do forward next to kind of decide what directions we want to look in. And maybe I think with the direction Commissioner Toman and I were talking about last night was maybe discussing the formation of a committee to make determinations of ideas and recommendations moving forward.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Also, I would request that through the HR department, we amend the agenda to include a staffing request from HR regarding seasonal firefighters to advertise for those positions. I would request a motion to amend that agenda for that purpose.
Mr. Chairman, couldn't we cover that under fire? Under other?
You need to put it on there, I believe, separately. It could follow that, of course, but it needs to be put on there separately, Commissioner Toman. Is there a motion to amend the agenda for HR?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd.
I will make the motion that we add a discussion about the temporary firefighters, the seasonal firefighters to the agenda.
Okay, there's a motion to amend the agenda to put on HR's request of advertising for seasonal firefighters. Is that correct, Mr. McLean? Thank you. by Commissioner Lloyd. Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion dies as a lack of a second to amend the agenda. Moving on. Is there any other agenda amendments? No further amendments. I would entertain that we have a motion to approve the agenda with the amended motion for the fire discussion, and there was a second to include, I'm sorry, the amended motion, and there was a second. So with no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All righty, so that'll go under other. Boom, 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 boom. With that, moving forward, first up is the approval of our minutes. First is the December 7th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Commissioners, your pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve.
Commissioner Toman makes a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up is approval of the December 13th, 2021 intergovernmental joint leadership minutes. Commissioners, your pleasure.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lloyd.
I would make a motion that we approve the 12/13/21 intergovernmental joint leadership meeting minutes as presented.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lloyd. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Acceptance of the bills.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Commissioner Shanefield.
I'll make a motion to accept the bills, including the county vouchers and warrants, the bonds, the monthly reports, and the abates and rebates as
Okay.
presented.
We have a motion by Commissioner Shanefield to approve the bills as presented. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Toman.
I would second.
We have a second by Commissioner Toman. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I believe I heard Commissioner Shanefield say an aye, right? Yes, okay, thank you. All right, next up under tab C, a public hearing for planning and zoning, and we do have 4 hearings. And the first one will be Sunrock conditional use permit for gravel quarry. Second will be Salmon Run subdivision final plat. Third will be Volsic subdivision final plat. It'll be a third hearing. Commissioners, in your packet regarding that particular hearing and approval, there are conditional conditions that are listed, but those conditions, I believe, have been met prior to shortly after the packets went out. So Ms. Toomer will be able to explain those to us, what occurred. And then, of course, the fourth one is General Wyoming LLC zoning map amendment A, agricultural, to include an MD, a mineral development 2 overlays. So with that, here to present the planning and zoning is Ms. Toomer, as well as Mr. Bingham, who is the head of the planning and zoning department. So Ms. Toomer, are you ready? All right, the floor is yours. Good morning.
Good morning,
All right, go.
commissioners. We will just get started right in on our first public hearing this morning. The applicant was Sunrock Corporation. They are proposing to have to increase an already existing gravel mine out on Highway 372 currently. They have a 9.9 acre gravel mining site out there, which was able to be permitted in our office earlier this year because the size was less than 10 acres. Now that they're wanting to increase the size to 40 acres, we're here today for the conditional use process. The hours of operation that they are proposing to keep is from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. And the duration that they will continue with this permit and is until there's no more aggregate material to be mined, with an estimate of 5 to 25 years. They are currently hauling in water and using portable toilets out there. As you can see, this is located out on Highway 372. Lots of ag land, mineral development land in the area. Perfect spot for a gravel mine. As I said, it's already been in operations. They're just looking to increase the size to 40 acres here today. This is the site plan that was submitted. The blue outline is the actual permitted boundary that they are looking to increase to. And here are the site photos we took when we posted the public notice. We'll jump right into the criteria. First criteria, the request is consistent with all applicable provisions with a comprehensive plan. This encourages economic growth within the county, and this conditional use permit will also be just increasing the size to the 40 acres. Criteria number 2, the request shall not adversely affect adjacent properties. This is, as I've stated before, located close to Highway 372. That's will be used for easy access and hauling purposes. To this date, we have not received any negative comments at this time. Requirement number 3, the request is compatible with the existing or allowable uses of the adjacent properties. Agricultural, mineral development, MD1 zone districts are in this area. Both of these zone district quarries are allowed as long as they don't exceed the 40 acres, which this request is asking for. Criteria number 4, the request can demonstrate that adequate facilities, including roads, drainage, potable water, sanitary sewer, police and fire protection exist or will exist to serve the request at the time such facilities are needed. As I stated, they are currently hauling in water and using portable toilets. All adequate public facilities are available as needed. Criteria number 5, the request can demonstrate adequate provisions to the maintenance and use of associated structures. It's a current mining operation and they are fulfilling this requirement already. And criteria number 6, the request has minimized to the greatest degree possible adverse effects on the natural environment. For section 18C2 of the Sweetwater County zoning regulations, reclamation shall be consistent with the state of Wyoming Environmental Quality Act and associated rules and regulations after mining operations have ceased. So they will be required to go through the reclamation process after their mining operations are completed. Criteria number 7, the request will not create undue traffic congestion. Again, we've not received any comments as the mine has already been operating since February of this year. We don't foresee any problems with the increase in size there either. Criteria number 8, the request will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Again, this is about the best area you can have for a gravel mine, and we've not received any negative comments at all on this project. And criteria number 9, the request conforms with all applicable provisions of this resolution, which it does. We did receive 4 agency comments, the first being from Kinder Morgan, and they don't have any concerns. The next being from Rock Springs Grazing Association. They have no concerns and support the development of this pit, which is good because they're the actual property owners that the pit resides on. And YDOT also had no obligations to it. They did go on to mention that they would need, the Sunrock would need to install signs to notify the public and just make sure those are maintained as they work through this process. So they had no concerns there. And again, and the last agency comment we received was from Sweetwater County Emergency Management, and they have no objections to this conditional use permit either. The P and Z voted 5-0 and approved, recommended to approve this conditional use permit as presented, and staff also approves as well. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Toomer. Before I ask the commissioners if they have any question or comments, do I have any representation here from Sunrock? If we do, gentlemen, if you would like to come forward and introduce yourself, if you have any comments or not. And then please introduce your counterpart too, please.
Well, thank you. So my name is Wayne Hupfries, and I'm the local aggregate manager. And I'm accompanied by Bill King, who is our environmental manager. And so hopefully between the two of us, we could answer any questions that you might have. We just want to say thank you for considering this. As was stated, it is currently a mining operation. We would just like to expand it a little bit bigger than what it currently is. So I don't really have anything to add, but we're certainly happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for either Ms. Toomer or Mr. Bingham coming out of the land use, or for either representatives from Sunrock? Commissioners, Commissioner Dolman.
Yes, I do have a question. Will this area be fenced? Will this gravel pit be fenced?
So there currently is a fence along the highway
Right.
that I guess kind of separates it from the adjacent lands. I don't believe there is a fence on either side of it. However, on the east and north sides, it really just kind of falls off of a natural slope. And so it kind of acts as a natural barrier.
Well, the reason I ask is because there have been conflicts with livestock in the area. So I don't know if you've contacted BLM and adjacent permittees to comment, because there's been problems when they get ready to do reclamation, that those gravel pits aren't fenced off, and it's very difficult to keep the livestock off of those areas.
Yeah, so our entrance road does have a fence. Has there been any, has the BLM made any comments, or have you had any discussions with the BLM?
So we access the gravel pit through BLM property, so we do.
Right.
commit consent. There has not been any challenges with the livestock there. I mean, we do lease the property from Roxton Grazing Association, so we work closely with them to verify that we do get proper reclamation. We have other locations that we lease from them as well.
Oh, excuse me. You need to talk into the mic. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, no worries.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Wayne.
You bet. The landowner is Roxton Grazing Association, and we work closely with them and with the cattle they run out there. And we also have other properties, or we lease other properties from them, to where we have gone through the reclamation process. And so we are fully aware and fully committed and have experience with working through that properly to make sure that it seeds okay.
I would just recommend that at least electric fence be placed on that when you do reclamation, because there have been conflicts, and livestock permittees were not notified of this expansion through the BLM or otherwise. So just for the future, I think you need to be aware of that. But I would highly recommend that you at least electric fence during reclamation.
Thank you. Any other questions for the Sunrock or Eric? Eric, I got a question. Would you come forward, please, Mr. Bingham? Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, is based on our planning and zoning regulations. Has everything been met for this project?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So fencing, any fencing issues or anything like that would have been in our regulations?
Right, and we don't have any regulations that address fencing. I didn't know that was an issue or a conflict, but as Commissioner Tolman stated, we notified the Bureau of Land Management, but they don't necessarily
Respond.
respond to, well, they usually don't respond to to the land use department when we're adjacent. So, because it's checkerboarded out there, but they didn't make any comments regarding any fencing.
Thank you. At least, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have any other further questions. You answered what needed to be answered. BLM was notified, chose not to respond to everything within this Sunrock request has been met by our planning and zoning regulations, and the committee has recommended it 5-0 without any notifications or recommendations.
right.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay, any other questions? All right, at this time, thank you, gentlemen. You can sit down. Appreciate it. This time, I will open up the floor for a public hearing with a recommendation 21-12-ZO-01 for approval of a conditional use permit to allow 40-acre gravel quarry on property owned by Rock Springs Grazing Association. Floor is now open for public comment on the recommendation of approval. Floor is open. Floor is open. Last call for public comment regarding the recommendation for this approval. Oh, sorry. Come forward.
So one thing, just to address Commissioner Tolman's concerns, there are reclamation bonds that go in place with the Bureau of Land Management. The cattle get in there and there are issues with when they reseed for reclamation. Sunrock won't get the reclamation bond back. So there is incentive for them to assure that it is reclaimed correctly. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Again, last call for public comment on recommendation for approval. Floor is now closed for public comment. Commissioners, your pleasure regarding this conditional use permit.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Commissioner Shanefield.
make a motion to recommend 21-12-ZO-01 for approval, the conditional use permit.
Okay, we have a
Motion.
no, just a minute. We have a motion. We have a motion. Thank you. I lost that word. We have a motion to approve resolution 21-12-ZO-01 for approval of a conditional use permit to allow 40-acre gravel quarry on property owned by Rock Springs Grazing Association. A motion by Commissioner Shanefield. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Ms. Toomer, our next public hearing, our next plan is zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next public hearing is a Salmon Run subdivision final plat. The property owner is RLS Inc. and it's 3.78 acres located just on the boundary between Wyoming and Utah, down in the Washam Creek area. This is a rural residential subdivision. It's the last bit of land. If I go over to the map, it's surrounded by the Cedar Rest. The other two subdivisions that are in this area, it's the last piece of land they can get developed. What they're proposing right now is a 3 acres or 3-lot subdivision. The westernmost lot will be the larger and the other two will meet our minimum requirements, being 1 acre each. This is the simplest subdivision I think I've ever seen. They have all the existing infrastructure that they need. Septic will be required out there. The town of Manila will provide water, and State Line Road, which is actually in Utah, will be the main point of access out there. So they were required to put water taps to each of the properties. This has been paid in full to the town of Manila already, so there is no need for a subdivision improvements agreement. And yeah, that's about all we really have on this one. Here are the pictures of the area when the public notice was put up. And we did have 3 agencies respond. Kinder Morgan having no concerns as they have no facilities in the project area. YDOT has no concerns as well, and neither does Sweetwater County Emergency Management. They have no concerns. And the staff would like to request that fees in lieu of be waived for this subdivision due to proximity to all the other subdivisions in the area. And we also recommend the approval of this final plat, as does the Planning and Zoning Commission. They voted 5-0 on December 8th to approve as presented. And that's all I have for this one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Toomer. Is there anybody here from the subdivision? There isn't. Okay. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Toomer? Any questions? For it? I have one, please. Ms. Toomer, I don't know if you can answer this, but Mr. Bingham may. Who's responsible for fire out there?
I believe it's Sweetwater County.
County
Fire.
County Fire?
Mhm.
And there are residents out there, is that correct? Residential buildings?
Correct.
So if they're responsible for fire and they were to respond, they would be expected to fight fire in a residential area?
Correct.
Thank you very much. I'm surprised they didn't have a comment, but I just want to point out that Sweetwater County is responsible for that. And even though their priority is wildfire, they have some responsibility for residential fire as well. Is that correct? Thank you very much. Any other questions, commissioners? With no further questions, I will open up the floor for public hearing on recommended approval of recommendation 21-12-0-02, which is a final plat for Salmon Run subdivision. Floor is now open for public comment. Very simple. Floor is open. Last call. Close public comment. Commissioners, your pleasure regarding resolution approving resolution 21-12-0-02 RLSS Incorporated final plat, some Salmon Run subdivision.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Shanefield.
make a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve the resolution as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, commissioners. With that, Ms. Toomer, you're up. I believe we have another one.
All
Thank
right.
you, gentlemen, for being here. Merry Christmas. Okay, Ms. Toomer, regarding the BOCC subdivision final plat.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The BOCC final plat is for an approximately 65.6 acre portion located, as most of you well know, where the BOCC mobile home trailer court is at. Mr. Robert BOCC owns the property. What they are proposing right now is a 3-lot subdivision. Lots 1 and 3 would be mixed residential, which is where Mr. Volsick lives himself, and then also where the mobile home trailer court is. Lot 2 is zoned commercial and recreational services, which is the furthest lot to the east, which is currently vacant at this time. West Side Water And sewer will provide sewer for this, and City of Rock Springs is currently and will provide water to the subdivision as well. Fire District 1 is the responding fire district. Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion Energy also provide infrastructure to this area. We have previously approved 2 requests for variance on access road widths within the mobile home court, which is in Lot 1. They were granted a couple meetings ago, and we've also cleaned up the spot zoning in this area to make the CRS one contiguous zoned lot within Lot 2. So everything's been met up to date. As Commissioner Wendling addressed earlier in the meeting, there have been conditions that were proposed when it was proposed to the P&Z Commission 2 weeks ago. The will serve letter for water or for the sewer district was not provided at the time. It has been provided as of last Friday. So that conditioning is met and completed. And then the other thing we were waiting on was a utility use agreement between Mr. Volsick and Mr. Volsick as trustees to where his house currently resides. It was taking a little bit to get that done, but that has been subsequently provided and recorded and now has been noted on the final plat as well. So both conditions, as P&Z have recommended, have been fulfilled late last week. So after the staff report was submitted to your department. We did receive 3 agency comments back. The first being from Kinder Morgan. They have no concerns as they don't have any facilities in the area. And YDOT also responded. YDOT has no objections. Please see previous YDOT city comments stated 7/15/2021 and February 25th, 2001. They still apply. It appears an access easement has been provided to serve Lot 2 via Lot 1 that may address some of the previous concerns. If and when Lot 2 develops, the owner must obtain a new access permit onto Foothill Boulevard from YDOT for the change in use. And Sweetwater County Emergency Management has no objections to this application either.
Okay, thank you. I believe Mr. Volsick is here. Good morning, sir. How are you? Good. Do you have anything to add to this? Okay, very good. But if there's something, please raise your hand and come to the podium if you think of something during comment time, okay? All right, commissioners, any questions for either Mr. Volsick or for Ms. Toomer?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would like to add that this, because it's within the 1 mile boundary of city limits, this will also be presented at Rock Springs City Council tonight to be approved as well. So there is one more step to this process
Oh, very good.
to
Thank
being
you.
approved.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, commissioners, any questions for either Mr. Volsick or Ms. Toomer? Okay, with no questions, I will then open up this hearing for the recommendation of Resolution 21-12-00-03, Robert Volsick, final plat, Volsick subdivision, and remind everyone that this is the third hearing. So the floor is open for public comment. Floor is open. Being third hearing, we will speed this up. Nothing. Final call, third hearing. Comment period is closed. Commissioners, your pleasure regarding recommendation to, I'm sorry, not recommendation, resolution 21-12-ZEB-0-03, Robert Volsick, final plat, Volsick subdivision. And there are no conditions. At the bottom of the one that you see in your packet, it lists conditions, but they will not be there, correct?
We will submit a revised resolution with no
Very
conditions.
good. Thank you very much. Commissioners, your pleasure.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tolman,
I would make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Toman to approve Resolution 21-12 ZEB 0 or ZEB O-03. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Commissioner Lloyd, you did vote yes?
I said aye.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I know that's unusual.
I hear you, bud. All right, so motion carries. Moving on, before you start, Ms. Toomer, Commissioner Shanefield, when you put that packet forward for that land use, make sure you pull it. Don't sign it because we'll get a revised one for the Volsiks. Thank you, Mr. Volsik, and congratulations and good luck with you as you move forward. Next up is our fourth public hearing with Jenner, Wyoming. Ms. Toomer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our final hearing today is for a zone map amendment out at Jenner, Wyoming. They're proposing all the land within their DEQ permitted boundary that is currently ag right now to add an MD2, which is a mineral development overlay on top of the property, which would allow them to continue operations as normal. This hearing is merely to clean up our records and make sure they match all over the place. When we started going back in the history a little bit, one thing that we found was the maps were extremely vague on what actually had the MD2 overlay out there. So we're just trying to make sure everybody's on the same page and actually apply a legal description to that. And that legal description will be the DEQ permitted boundary. One point of clarification that I want to make sure everybody understands is that MD2 is a mineral development overlay district that is intended to accommodate underground mining in conjunction with the surface use of the base zoning district. In this case, it will be agricultural, whereas MD1 is a district intended to accommodate all mineral extractions or productions and ancillary facilities. The MD1 zone is only appropriate where Jenner has their above ground facilities as well as below ground. The request here today is just for the MD2 overlay, so all the surface or subsurface zoning requirements. This is just to update all of our zoning records, make sure everybody's on the same page. Jenner has willingly went along with this and has provided all needed documentation and has been very good at educating the public as well as we've gone through this process. And just so everybody's clear, this will not change how any of the lands out there are taxed, as everything is subsurface anyway that we're dealing with today. And one note that I do want to bring out is per Wyoming State Statute, Section 18.5.201, authority vested in the Board of County Commissioners, inapplicably of the chapter to incorporate cities and towns, mineral resources, and private schools. To promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the county, each Board of County Commissioners may regulate and restrict the location and use of the buildings, structures, and the use, conditions of use, or occupancy of the lands for resident, recreation, agricultural, industrial, commerce, public use, and other purposes in the unincorporated area of the county. However, nothing in Wyoming Statute 18.5.201 through 18.5.208 shall be construed to contravene any zoning authority of any unincorporated city or town. No zoning resolution or plan shall prevent any use or occupancy reasonably necessary to the extraction or production of the mineral resources in or under any of the land subject thereto. Just wanted to remind everybody that they have gone through all the necessary permits. This is a matter of just cleaning up records so everybody's on the same page. In the attached zoning map, you can see that the red boundary is the DEQ permitted boundary, where you can see the brown parcels. This is land that is currently zoned MD1, so it affects surface use and below surface use. What is being proposed today is all the hatched area, which will be all subsurface use only. Here are the site photos that were taken when the public notice was posted. And we'll jump right into the criteria. The first is amendment is consistent and compatible with the current resolution and comprehensive plan. Jenner has been operating underground uses within their DEQ permitted boundary for years. This is merely just to clean up everybody's records. Criteria number 2, the proposed zoning is suitable for existing topography and creates buildable lots. Again, they've been through all the permitting process if they've needed to, so there's no problem here. Criteria number 3, the proposed zoning is compatible with existing or allowable uses in adjacent properties and neighboring zoning districts. The lands are surrounded by agricultural and mineral development, MD1. This MD2 again is just an overlay on top of the agricultural, only affecting subsurface use, as they've been operating this way for years in this area. Criteria number 4, the proposed zoning can demonstrate adequate public facilities, including roads, drainage, potable water, sanitary sewer, police, and fire protection exist or will exist to serve the request at the time such facilities are needed. There are plenty of adequate facilities out there already located on the property, so there's no worries here either. Criteria number 5, the amendment shall not adversely affect adjacent properties, communities to health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Sweetwater County. To this date, we've not received any negative comments in regard to this request for zone map amendment. And criteria number 6, the request conforms with all applicable provisions of this resolution, which it does meet. 4 agencies commented back to us: Kinder Morgan, no concerns as they have no facilities in the area. Rock Springs Grazing, they have no negative comments and support mineral development in the KLSA area. YDOT has no objections either, and neither does Sweetwater County Emergency Management. Land Use recommends approval of this zone amendment as was recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission on December 8th. They voted 5-0 to recommend as we presented. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Morgan. Appreciate that very much. Before we open it up for questions from the commissioners, I believe Mr. Schultz is here. Good morning, sir. Would you please introduce who else is here with you from Jenner? Come up to the microphone, please.
Brother's got some laryngitis going on.
Oh my gosh. Would you want to?
Get it.
I'm a little under the weather, but Craig Rude will speak in my stead.
Very good. Come up, Mr. Rude. Welcome. Glad to see you this morning. Thanks for taking your time out to join us. And before you make a comment, I'm going to say right up front, we appreciate everything Jenner does for the people of Sweetwater County. And just can't tell you how much we're glad to be a partner with you. And with that, I'll turn the floor over to you if you have anything more to add with this.
Good. Well, thank you for that. And we are proud to be a partner in the community and look forward to expanding and growing the county. So not a lot to add. I would just say that, I spent some time with the landowners out there because they originally had some concerns about what did this mean. But it really doesn't mean anything other than we're actually showing the boundaries of what's really going on underground, but no surface activity will change and nothing any different in the way we're doing business. So
okay.
Just want to clean it up.
All right. Thank you. Would you just would stay up front? Do you have anybody else with you need to introduce from Jenner? Very good. Commissioners, any questions for either Mr. Rood or Ms. Toomer regarding this resolution? All right, no more questions. So with that, we're going to move forward. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Rood. With that, we will move forward on the public hearing, and the public hearing is for recommendation of resolution 21-12-ZEB-O-04 for approval of a zoning map amendment from agricultural A to include a mineral development overlay MD-2 requested by Jenner Wyoming LLC. Floor is now open for comment, public comment. Floor is open, public comment. Anything? Floor is open. Last call, public comment regarding the recommendation. Floor, public comment is now closed. Commissioners, your pleasure regarding resolution 21-12 ZEB O-04 for approval of a zoning map amendment from
Mr. Chairman.
agricultural aid to include a mineral development overlay MD-2 requested by Jenner Wyoming LLC. Commissioner Shanefield.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Shanefield to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Schultz, Mr. Rude. Appreciate you being here. Merry Christmas to you and your staff. Ms. Toomer, nice job. Mr. Ingham, good job. And Merry Christmas to you too as well. Moving.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Shanefield.
I'd like to point out that Mr. Rude also got the brown and gold memo.
Always, we appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, in case we're wondering, there is a Wyoming Cowboys football game,
2 p.m.
2 p.m. That's
And that's our time limit today. just so
okay,
you know.
and they play Kent University. And for those that are Shadron fans, remember the head coach for Kent State, Mr. O'Boyle, was also the head coach at Shadron State, which many of our students in Sweetwater County attended that college during the time he was there. So anyhow, good connections, but thank you. Go Pokes. All right, with that, I'm sure I violated every rule in the book regarding impartiality for county commissioners. So I'll wait for my punishment and I'll accept all accountability. Thank you. With that, we're moving forward. At this time, we'll open up our meeting for county resident concerns. County resident concerns. Floor is open. Floor is open. County resident comments or concerns? Last call. Close this part of the hearing. Commissioners, a break or moving on?
I'm good.
Move on.
Move on.
Okay, very good. Up next, our tab D is Solid Waste Disposal District Number 1, Rock Springs Board Appointments. And with that, let me go through there and pull that one up. I didn't have it ready, although I read it. We have a 3-year term due to the resignation of Steve O'Brien. This will fill an unexpired term through 3/1/24. At our last meeting, we appointed Crystal Holder, who declined the appointment from the 12/7/21 board meeting. So therefore, we're back to our groups to appoint a new board member. And our choices is Charlotte Doak, Celeste Black, J. Andrew Hall, Sheldon Beard, Lars Nandrup. So anybody have an opportunity to talk with RJ Piper, the board chairman, regarding what their board needs for an appointment? Did any commissioner get a chance? I did have an opportunity. I did call him to find out what would be a good mix. And he said that he felt that of the applicants, when he reviewed them, J. Andrew Hall or Lars Andrup. And with that, commissioners, your thoughts?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Toman.
I would make a recommendation to appoint J. Andrew Hall.
Okay, we have a motion to appoint Mr. Hall to the unexpired term for the Solid Waste District Number 1. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'd like to thank, again, just thank Mr. O'Brien for the time he served, and also thank all the applicants that put their name in, and congratulate Mr. Hall. With that, next on our agenda is tab E, which is approval of audit report. And to present that, I believe, is Miss Berry. And I believe Miss Pickering is on Zoom. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning.
All right, we can hear you loud and clear. So at this time, we'll have Miss Berry come forward. And then when you finish, we'll ask Miss Pickering. You can introduce her when you're ready to allow any comments there, okay?
Okay.
All right, Miss Berry, good morning.
Good morning,
Thank you.
Chairman and Commissioners. We are here today, well, Stephanie mainly is here today to present the audit report. We are about wrapped up with it. It is quite a long process and we're almost done with it. So Stephanie is here to present. It's still in draft form, so she's going to present the draft of the audit report and the financial statements. Stephanie, I know you're used to seeing Amber. Stephanie is now the partner in charge of our audit. Amber no longer is. So this is Stephanie Pickering. This is probably the first time you have seen her and met her. So I will turn the time over to Stephanie to go ahead and present that audit report and the financials.
Thank you. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good
Again.
morning. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm going to share my screen with you all this morning, just so we can take a look at the deliverables together. Everyone, it looks like I can see on your screen here. So the first document that I'm going to show to you today, just briefly, is the audit committee report, and then we will shift to the financial statements. There are two deliverables from our office to yours. The first here is the audit committee report, and it's here titled to the Board of County Commissioners. And then the second is our June 30th, 2021 financial and compliance report. Regarding this first document, this is required by professional standards. And for those of you that have been here with us at this presentation before, you're probably familiar with the content and the layout. It's very consistent with what you've seen in previous years. Under our professional standards, it's just kind of our communication to those charged with governance, which is just a fancy way of saying the county commissioners. It explains kind of the scope of our procedures performed, any significant findings that we had, as well as some other information. So rather than going through this report or this letter kind of line by line, I'm just going to refer back to it today throughout my presentation, and through that, then we'll cover kind of all of the high points. Moving then to the audit report, let me get it switched here. Opinions within the financial and compliance report that I would like to touch on this morning. The first is the financial statement, the opinion on the suite of financial statements. The second is our opinion on the county's compliance with laws and regulations. And then the third is the county's compliance with uniform guidance or federal grants, if you will. Our opinion begins here on page 4, PDF page 4, actual page 1 if you have the document in front of you today. But the key kind of couple of key areas that I would like to key in on. So we audited the county as well as the county's discretely presented component units, with the exception of the hospital. So this kind of under the auditor's responsibility paragraph here, that's kind of what it's identifying to you all, is that we audited the county, the component units, but not the hospital, which is audited by another audit firm. The key paragraph then is here on page 2 or PDF page 5, which is this opinion paragraph here. And as you can see, it says that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position as of June 30th. So that is an unmodified or clean opinion. As commissioners and as citizens of Sweetwater County. That's exactly the opinion that you hope to find. Clean opinion, no modifications. As we go further in my presentation today, we'll talk about the other two opinions as well. Beginning then on PDF page 7 is management's discussion and analysis, which is drafted by Bonnie and her team, and really gives a really nice comparative picture for how the fiscal year went. So you probably remember that government financial statements are a little bit different than what you normally see for like a for-profit or a not-for-profit, where those financial statements can be comparative. They would show this year as well as last year. In government financial world, you typically just see 1 year worth of information. So management's discussion analysis is really good for you all to be able to see kind of that comparative year-to-year look. A lot of great information, but I'm just going to touch on a couple of highlights. Here is kind of a very condensed summary of the county's statement of net position. And I just would like to point out a few kind of high points here. So in total, if we looked at the primary government, which is Sweetwater County, and then your component units, this business type component unit is comprised wholly of the hospital, and then all of your other component units are kind of here in this middle column here. But if you look in total for all 3 columns, there was a 2% decrease this year in assets and deferred outflows, which was then accompanied by a decrease of about 6% in total liabilities and deferred outflows, which overall increased your total net position for the year for about 1%. I'm going to jump now to the actual statement of net position here and really kind of key in on a couple of highlights specifically for Sweetwater County and the component units that we audited. So if we look at cash and investments, there's cash and investments here as well as some non-current cash investments below.
Miss Stephanie?
Yes, sir.
Would you please tell us what, as you move forward, I know you're skipping pages, but if you can remember, would you please tell us what pages you're moving to?
Oh, yes, absolutely. My apologies.
Thank you very much.
We are currently on page 14 or PDF page 18. Looking here at your assets, cash and investments decreased $2.2 million or about 3%. After the presentation or when you get a little bit of time, I recommend that you take a look at footnote 2 within the financial statements. That gives a lot of really good detailed information that you might be interested in about cash and investments held by the county. Another kind of key line item that changed this year from last year was your accounts receivable line item. So that decreased $5.4 million. Again, there is a very detailed footnote in the footnote section. That's footnote 4. That $5.4 million was primarily decreases in tax receivables this year. Taking a look here in your non-current asset section, let me blow it here. The bulk of the non-current assets are related to capital assets, land, construction in progress, buildings, those kinds of things. By and large, that stayed very consistent from last year. There was a slight decrease of about 1%, but that was predominantly as a result of depreciation expense throughout the year. If we shift into PDF page 19 or actual page 15, this is the liabilities. And again, just kind of focusing on the changes between the first 2 columns. There was an increase in your current liabilities from last year, but offset by a decrease in your long-term liabilities. The biggest driver for that increase in current liabilities is this unearned revenue line item here, close to the top. And you can see within Sweetwater County, that was about $7.6 million this year. There was a 100% increase over last year, and that balance was about $3.8 million. And that increase is almost wholly attributable to the monies that the county received for the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds under the American Rescue Plan. So the county received those monies prior to June 30th, but the conditions to recognize that revenue hadn't been met by June 30th. Thus, it's kind of deferred or reported as unearned revenue until next year. The biggest line items in the non-current liability sections here, very consistent with last year, were the total Opeb liability as well as the net pension liability through Wyoming retirement systems. In total, those had about a 5% decrease from last year, or $1.6 million. And we're going to talk a little bit about both of those liabilities shortly. If we take a look at your net position, or what you might think of as equity, the bulk of your net position sits here inside net investment and capital assets. It's about 80% of the county's total net position, very consistent with last year. That was 78%. All right, I am going to jump back now into MD&A just briefly, and then we're going to come back again. In addition to the statement of net position, MD&A also has a really nice snapshot, the statement of activities for the year. So this is on PDF page 11 or actual page 8. Again, it's kind of combining Sweetwater County and both of the component units. In total, between the three columns, revenue increased about $5.7 million, or a 3% increase. There was also an increase in total expenses for the year. Let's see here, and I am going to shift now to PDF page 20, or actual page 16, to kind of hone in on some of those actual highlights for the year. So your single largest contributor to that increase in revenue this year happens within this operating grants and contributions column, primarily here within some of your component units. There is an 18% increase over the prior year, and that is almost wholly attributable to an increase in federal revenue that the county and component units received this year. There was a decrease, kind of an offsetting decrease in revenue in this charges for sales and services column. And that was primarily related to the decreased revenue in the events complex component unit. As you can imagine, and as I'm sure you're aware, kind of the reduced activities within that component unit as a result of the pandemic really drove that charges for sales and services number lower. Down here at the bottom is kind of general revenues, where we report to you all taxes. There was a decrease in property tax revenue this year of about 5%, or $1.4 million. We also saw a decrease in sales tax revenue of 16%, or $2 million. Beginning on page 17 then, or PDF page 22, begins the fund level statements. So fund level statements really focus on maybe more near-term financial information. They exclude all of the long-term things like capital assets, the net pension liability. If you were to have had any debt, like bonds payable, for example, all of that would get shown on your statement of net position and statement of activities, but all of that long-term like information is excluded from the fund level information. That's much more, fund level is much more closely aligned to maybe what you see regularly when you're looking at budget to actual statements. I'm not going to really spend any time today on your fund level statements. The increases and decreases that I spoke about already, by and large, also affect these fund level statements. But if you wish to see kind of some of that more detailed, drilled in information by fund, I recommend you spend a little bit of time kind of flipping through those fund statements. I'm going to jump now to PDF page 38, or actual page 30 which is where the county's footnotes begin. And by and large, the content of these footnotes are very consistent with what the county has presented in previous years. Management selects all of the accounting procedures, and those policies really drive how the fiscal teams within the county record activity. The first footnote is kind of a significant accounting policies, and a summary of those is here. There were no changes to these this year. We found no significant accounting policies that we felt were controversial or were in areas that just were emerging and did not have a lot of authoritative guidance. In addition, we identified no unusual transactions during the course of our audit this year. The county did adopt one new accounting standard this year, and that was GASB 84, and it had to relate to fiduciary activities. Under this standard, management is required to analyze whether or not any funds that they currently were reporting met the definition of fiduciary funds. And there was one fund that they looked at. Previously, if you were looking through the financial statements last year, you would have seen the property tax fund referred to as an agency fund. Under GASB Statement 84, the terminology just changed, and that is now reported as a custodial fund. But ultimately, the content of that didn't change how your fiscal team recorded the information. That's all very consistent with last year. The only change that that statement did require was the addition of an additional financial statement. So there's now basically an income statement for that custodial fund, whereas last year, just the statement of net position would have been reported. A couple of other footnotes that we would like to call your attention to today, beginning on PDF page 49 or actual page 40 is the net pension liability, and it's quite a lengthy footnote. As you may remember, county employees participate in the Wyoming retirement systems, and there are a couple of different plans through Wyoming retirement systems, the public employee pension plan, as well as the law enforcement plan. And this footnote gives a lot of really great information about benefits provided, how the county contributes to the plan, the percentages that the employee is required to also contribute to that plan. It also gives you some detailed information on kind of the assumptions that are being made at the Wyoming retirement systems level. The county, of course, since this is a multiple employer pension plan, only records their proportionate share of that liability every year. So it can go up or down depending on what percentage of the overall liability Sweetwater County is responsible for. It can also change depending on those assumptions that are made by Wyoming Retirement Systems and their board. So changes in how their investment portfolio is performing, for example, assumptions for how long people are going to continue to work, when they're going to retire, those kind of assumption changes. So Sweetwater County's proportionate share and their liability increases or decreases every year as a result of those. On page, let's see, PDF page 70, which is actual page 61, begins footnote 18, which is the post-employment benefit plan that the county has. This is slightly different than the pension plan, in which it's a single member plan, meaning only the county participates. There's also an estimation process for this liability. The county hires an actuary. The actuary comes in, runs the numbers to provide that liability. For both the net pension liability through the Wyoming retirement systems, as well as your Opeb plan, we evaluated how the county estimates those liabilities and found both of those processes to be reasonable. There are two other what we'd like to call significant accounting estimates within the financial statements that we think you as the commissioners should be aware of. The first is within the Southwest Counseling Services, and that has to do with their allowance for uncollectible accounts receivable. And then the county's self-insurance incurred but not recorded claims liability. We reviewed both of those estimates as part of our audit procedures and found the estimation process to be reasonable as well. Let's see, beginning then on page 107 or actual page 95 are the final two opinions that I shared with you earlier in my presentation. So the first is our report on internal control over financial reporting and the county's compliance with government auditing standards, which really we're just focusing here on internal controls over how the fiscal teams record financial information and whether the county and the county's component units have been in compliance with laws and regulations. Most of the time, those laws and regulations that we're looking at really apply to things like state statute. So for example, your requirement to have an investment policy that meets state guidelines, your policies to make sure that accounts are only held with qualified depositories, whether or not you've properly collateralized your accounts, etc. Within this opinion, we found no internal control issues, nor did we find any compliance violations that we would be required to report to you under government auditing standards. So very similar to your financial statement opinion, this compliance opinion is also clean and unmodified. The last opinion then is our report on compliance related to uniform guidance and our audit of the various federal programs that we audit. We are required under federal guidelines to audit a certain percentage of the county's federal expenditures every year. This year we audited 4 programs, Payment in Lieu of Taxes, or the PILT program, block grants for prevention and treatment of substance abuse, emergency grants to address mental and substance use disorders during COVID-19, and the Coronavirus Relief Fund. So those last 2 programs were really born out of the pandemic assistance from the federal government and were brand new programs for us to audit this year. We did not identify in the course of our audit work any internal control issues, nor did we identify any compliance violations that we would be required to report to you under uniform guidance. So again, a clean opinion that is unmodified. In conclusion, I would just like to say that it was a very clean audit this year, and that is something that we have come to expect from Sweetwater County and the fiscal team that kind of oversees the financial information. While we did receive a couple of audit adjustments after we started the audit, primarily those related to non-audit services that we provide in the course of our audit work. So for example, we assist the county in recording the net pension liability numbers or the Opeb liability every year. There were also a couple of uncorrected misstatements. I believe you also should have received a copy of the representation letter. Those uncorrected misstatements are included in Appendix A of that letter. Those are provided to you just to make you aware of them, but the lack of those being reported in the financial statements do not materially misstate the financial statements by any way, and we believe they're immaterial in general to the financial statements. We encountered no disagreements with management or had any significant dealings with management during the course of our audit. We are aware of no instances where the fiscal teams within the county disagreed with a conclusion that we have made or attempted to receive a second opinion, which could also be called opinion shopping. So by and large, a very, very clean year. Between the start of our preliminary work, which begins, I believe, with the component units and some client compliance work in mid-August, through today, so through December, we ask for a ton of information. We ask for a lot of support. We ask a lot of questions, and we work with a lot of individuals in the county, County Clerk Lane, County Treasurer Barbuto, Bonnie, Christina, and I can't count the probably numerous other people that we also work with. We are just very appreciative of their openness and responsiveness and willing to get us the support that we need to do our job and provide an opinion on the financial statements. So just in closing, just a thank you to them and their hard work. And I would be happy at this time to take any questions that you might have on the financial report.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Bonnie, commissioners, regarding the audit report, do you have any questions for either Ms. Berry or Ms. Pickering?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Shanefield.
no questions. I just wanted to tell Bonnie and all of our county employees, thank you and great job.
Thank you. We can all echo that. I appreciate you reminding everyone for thanking that. So any other questions, commissioners, regarding the audit report?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd?
I just would be remiss if we didn't thank everyone that helped with that process. She mentioned a ton of names, and Bonnie, Cindy, Christina, Treasurer Barbuto's names, and I'm sure there were a lot of others that weren't mentioned. And there's no clean report if we don't have a great team doing this work. And I want to just make sure I also give that thanks out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because I
Okay,
would not make a clean audit. That's just the truth. So
commissioners, your pleasure regarding approval of the, I believe, 2021 audit, Bonnie?
I would still move.
Yes, of the audit report.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd?
I would move that we accept the audit report as presented.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lloyd to approve the audit report as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Ms. Pickering, and have a Merry Christmas.
Merry
And be
Christmas to
safe.
you all as well. Thank you.
And be safe out there.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, up next is the BLM right-of-way grant for Wyoming WYW 191448. And here to present that is our Public Works Director and Road and Bridge, Mr. Legursky. Good morning, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have to apologize first for my dress. I don't have any plaid game day gold, so I went with the brown vest. That's the best I could do. And I also want to.
More for next year.
Okay, well, hopefully we get a better bowl next year and not go 6-6. And also I wanted to point out that this grant does start with WY, so we'll just go with that.
There you go. That's good enough for me.
Go.
With that, this is the BLM grant that we've been working on for about 9 months. It is in cooperation with Trout Unlimited and Game and Fish. If you guys remember when we submitted this, we have a beaver problem down on Sage Creek on the Flaming Gorge Road. Beaver keeps coming up and plugging the culvert and causing the culvert to overflow. And in that area, the Game and Fish has a no trapping policy for beaver, so we can't relocate the beaver. So they got together with Trout Unlimited and everything, and they are supplying the structural plate pipe culvert for us, and then we're installing it. But we had to go through because we have to do some riffle designs and some other stuff that helps with sedimentation in there. So we had to go through the BLM permit process to expand that area and to do some other things. So that's what this is. This is the culmination of it. And just ask that if you have any questions, I'm free to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Legursky. Commissioners, questions for Mr. Legursky?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Shanefield.
again, no question. I just think this is a great partnership and a good way for us to work together with our federal components and get some stuff taken care of in our county. So thank you.
Yeah, and especially Trout Unlimited was the one that really came through with this and helped us out a ton with that. They're actually doing all the Army Corps permitting and the structural design and everything like that on the plate. The plate, structural steel actually got delivered about a month ago and it's sitting in our yard. So
Do you know who the lead is with Trout Unlimited?
yes,
You do know.
I do.
Okay.
He's here all the time.
Yeah, Nick Waller.
There you go.
Yeah, just one big shout out to Nick.
Big guy.
Big thank you to Nick, because a lot of times he takes the lead
Mhm.
forefront on many of these things. And as Commissioner Shanefield had mentioned, our federal agencies are great partners, but also big partner.
Yeah.
As Trout Unlimited, especially with the work that Nick does. So a big shout of thank you to Nick. Okay, with that, any other questions for Mr. Legursky? Commissioners, your pleasure regarding approving the BLM right-of-way grant WIW 191448 and allow the chairman to sign all related documents.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tolman.
I would be glad to make that motion. I have a question too. When are you going to do that?
Hopefully after high water, we cannot get in there because of winter range and stuff like that until, I can't remember exactly in the permit. I think it says April or May. So we'll probably wait until August of next year until everything and get it done before hunting season, because that road will have to be shut down for about 2 weeks while we do it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Legursky. Commissioner Tolman, your motion stands to approve.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Legursky. I believe we're going to take a break and then we'll come back and do some restaffing with you and Mr. McLean.
I think we have one more
Where did I miss?
resolution.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, tab G, resolution 21-12-EN-01, a vacation of a portion of Firehole Basin Drive, County Road number 1222. And with that, Mr. Legursky, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Mr. Bingham indicated 2 weeks ago during your guys' meeting when with the initial acceptance of the Ranch View subdivision, there was a road that goes actually through there. And if you look at the plat that they did, the road actually diagonally through that subdivision when the Ganslin Ranch subdivision was originally built. That was the original road into the Ganslin Ranch subdivision. And with this plat, the other roads have been constructed. They've been preliminary accepted by the county engineer. You guys will accept them hopefully in a year if there's no problems. And what we need to do is we need to vacate that portion of Firehole Basin Drive south of the Ganslin Ranch subdivision, because right now we own a road that goes through some lots, and it's very tough for people to get loans and stuff like that on a road where we own a portion of their house. So all this is vacation, that portion of it, because there's already 2 existing roads that were built by the subdivision. So just cleaning this up and making it possible for everything to be neat and tidy.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions? No questions, commissioners? What's your pleasure regarding approving resolution 21-12-EN-01, which is a vacation of a portion of the Firehole Basin Drive, County Road number 1222, and chairman sign? Is that right? No,
Everybody.
everybody. Thank you very much. Commissioners,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Commissioner Shanefield.
make a motion to approve and as presented.
We've got a motion to approve as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Legursky. Thanks for keeping me straight. And we'll take a break now. We're scheduled at 9:55. We're scheduled to be back here at 10:10. So let's try to be here at 10:10 and ready to go, commissioners. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Boy, that Sally does a good job of getting
I believe we need Sally, right?
Yeah.
Let me grab her.
She's not in her office.
I won't grab her.
No. We're at right after the break, 10:10. We're at request to restaff custodial position, Gary.
Thank you. One resolution removed that needs to be the one I already had. Okay.
Okay, I'll call this meeting back to order. Go back to business. Is tab H, a request to restaff custodial position, and here to present that is Mr. Legursky and Mr. McLean, but Mr. McLean, you'll go first, please. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. Before you is a request to restaff a vacancy in the custodial department due to a resignation. The last day of the individual will be on the 24th. As the board will remember, over the past 3 or 4 years, we've reduced staff numbers within the custodial division in an attempt to meet some of the budget imperatives. With the nature of our facilities, especially the HHS, the Justice Center, and these buildings having complexes that are fairly spread out, it's difficult to continue to maintain the level of services for the number of offices and public utilization of those spaces. Especially throughout the COVID stuff, as most of you will remember. We tasked the custodial group pretty heavy throughout COVID to engage in additional cleaning, especially in the highly used public areas. And so this time, the custodial group is requesting to restaff that vacancy. You should have a summary of the payroll circumstances. Any changes would due to health insurance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McLean. Mr. Gursky, anything to add? Nothing to add. Okay, commissioners, any requests or any questions for Mr. McLean? Mr. McLean, is this position or one of those positions that is shared with providing services for any of our outside agencies or component units or places?
Perhaps Mr. Gursky wants to
Mr.
address that.
Gursky, thank you.
This position is actually over in the Green River. So yeah, we're in charge of cleaning Green River, the museum, and Roosevelt with the custodial staff that's over here.
All right, so this is in-kind services for the museum as well as Conservation District and
Golden Hour.
Golden Hour.
Yes.
All right.
It's one of the ones that it's not solely
not the only
designated because
one.
we rotate them.
Okay, but it's a position that's rotated
Yes.
as well. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you. What's your pleasure regarding the restaff of the custodial position and authorizing chairman to sign?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Shanefield,
I'll make a motion to approve the restaffing of the position as presented and authorize the chairman to sign.
we have a motion to approve and authorize chairman to sign by Commissioner Shanefield. Is there a second?
I can second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. McLean.
Thank you.
Okay, up next under tab I is an award presentation. And Sheriff Grossnickel, would you please take the podium, and the floor is yours. Good morning, sir.
Morning. Thank you, Mr.
And don't
Chairman.
hesitate to introduce who you have with you, please.
We have
Whenever time's right.
Deputy Chris Sutton's here, along with his family, his wife Heather, and children, and I believe in-laws, correct?
All right, welcome.
This is always something that's nice with this kind of a career that we have. Mr. Chairman and County Commissioners, Sweetwater County Sheriff's Office believes in recognizing its deputies for actions that go above and beyond the call of duty and for outstanding efforts in service to our agency in this community. In keeping with this belief, I'd like to formally recognize Deputy Chris Sutton for his exemplary efforts during an incident that occurred earlier this year. On Tuesday, October 7th, 2021, at approximately 10 p.m., Deputy Sutton responded to the area of mile marker 95 on Interstate 80 between Green River and Rock Springs for a report of a baby choking on food in a car. On arrival, Deputy Sutton quickly assessed the 7-month-old infant, recognizing that he was conscious but not breathing and that the baby's face was starting to turn red. Deputy Sutton proceeded to remove the infant from the vehicle and immediately began administering life-saving measures. Moments later, Deputy Sutton successfully dislodged the blockage from the infant's airway, and the baby started to breathe normally again and began to cry. Deputy Sutton then escorted the infant and its family to the hospital to help ensure that the baby was going to be okay. The infant was later released from the hospital without injury. Deputy Sutton's proactive response to the scene, his astute recognition of the severity of the medical emergency, and his immediate actions and effective use of the infant Heimlich maneuver directly resulted in saving the small child's life. Moreover, a failure to act or any delay in action in this situation may have very well led to unnecessarily and tragic outcome. I believe Deputy Sutton's actions during this incident merit special recognition. I'd like to present Deputy Sutton with a life-saving award and ask that the Board of County Commissioners join me in expressing our appreciation for Deputy Sutton's selfless sacrifice and commitment to serve the citizens of Sweetwater County.
Thank you, Sheriff. Deputy Sutton. Deputy Sutton, thank you.
If that's all right, yes.
Let's go down. Please. Thank you very much and congratulations. And it's not often, thank God, we have these, opportunities to recognize officers because, but we're glad we have officers trained and willing to step forward and do what needs to help our public. Thank you. Deputy Sheriff, thank you. And we just really appreciate what you do in all aspects of taking care of this county, and can't tell you enough how much. And thank you, Deputy Sutton. Thank you, Deputy Sutton's family, because he's only as good as your support. He ain't that-
I second that.
Oh, how well I know that, how well I know that. But thank you to the Sutton family, and above all, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Any other comments, commissioners? Very good. We will continue on with our agenda then, and moving forward with the tab J is a request to restaff the detention officer's position. Here to present that is Mr. McLean from HR, and if needed, Sheriff Grossnickel to assist. Go ahead, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. With respect to tab J, we had some change in circumstances with that, so we'd like to pull that from the agenda at this point. We'll address it at the first meeting in January, if that's okay with the
Jay,
board.
you're going to move.
Yes, please.
All right, Sally, you got that? Thank you.
We need a motion for that.
You know what, when we get there, let's do that. And what it'll be is, I would probably mention that it would be a motion to postpone.
Yeah.
John, Mr. De Leon? Okay, so we'll do that. Let's get this done first, and then we'll do a motion to postpone that.
So go ahead and do tab K.
Go ahead and do tab, which one?
Tab K.
Okay, so we are ignoring I and J.
I'm sorry,
Just Jay.
just J.
Just J. So we're at tab I. Oh, no, I'm sorry, tab J. Yes, so we need a motion to postpone the request to restaff a detention officer. Yes, we do need that motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Shanefield,
I'll make a motion to postpone the tab J request of the restaff of the detention officer position.
okay, we have a motion to postpone. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Lloyd. Further discussion? I would ask Mr. De Leon, is postpone okay, or do we have to postpone till next meeting?
No, postpone. It can be indefinite, not specific.
And then when that's brought forward, we'll bring it off the table. Is that correct?
Yes,
Or whatever.
yes, correct. It wouldn't be off the table because it wasn't tabled, but yes.
Yeah, okay, very good. Just question. So we'll figure it out and get it done right. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So tab K now, Mr. McLean, is a request to, is that correct?
Yes, tab K is a request to restaff a separate detention officer position.
Okay.
This is a vacancy resulting from medical inability to perform the duties. As a result, the sheriff would like to restaff as quickly as possible and start that process. As you know, commissioners, you have 2 detention officers in the adult area, 1 in juvenile, 1 that's a rover in the facility, and 1 in booking. And then generally during the days of court, 2 detention officers assigned to transport for district court and 2 for circuit court. And that's pretty much the daily staffing routine for detention officers. In the past, when we've done the analysis, we've looked at about 5 positions needed to cover the staffing needs for folks on training and leave and military leave and jury leave and all of those things. And so I think through some of that analysis, we've arrived at a fairly spot on staffing level and that facility. And as you know, that staffing level doesn't change whether we have 100 people in there or 200 people in there by the design of the facility. So those are the minimum recommended, and this would just be replacing the outgoing vacancy.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. McLean. Sheriff, anything to add? Go ahead.
Only if there's questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Sheriff Grossnickel or Mr. McLean? With no questions, Commissioners, your pleasure to approve the second request to restaff a detention officer position.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd,
I would like to make that motion and add and allow chairman to sign.
thank you. Good catch. That was a test. So you passed. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Lloyd. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I-
Commissioner Tolman.
I would second that.
We got a second by Commissioner Tolman. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Appreciate that. Now, tab L is a request for approval of UMR planned amendments. And here to present that is Mr. McLean. Mr. McLean, floor is still yours.
Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, before you is actually two amendments to the summary plan description. The first amendment is an amendment to the appeals process. The appeals with insurance claims were going to us after the initial review. We have moved that so that it goes to UMR for the second level so that we get their medical expertise in there. And obviously we're notified of the process. And it seems important for us if we're have to make a final decision to make sure that we have a thorough medical review on the details, the medical claim before it comes to us. And so that's the first amendment that's within there. The second one is actually just implementing something that we did earlier back in August when we adopted the plan. We made some changes with the stop loss carrier. And as part of that program, they offer a cancer care program, which acts as an advocate for patients undergoing cancer treatment and management to assist them in finding centers of excellence and seeking second opinions if they're necessary and coordinating treatment, nutrition, and other things. That's of no cost to us. That's simply part of the program offered by the stop loss program. And so what this really is doing for UMR is adding that specific cancer care program coverage to the county summary plan description contract. So I'm requesting and recommending to the board that we approve those two amendments to the county summary plan description and authorize the chairman to sign where indicated.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McLean. Questions, commissioners, for Mr. McLean regarding the two amendments? No questions? Very good. Commissioners, your pleasure regarding approving the two amendments and allowing the chairman to sign.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Shanefield,
I'll make a motion to approve both amendments as presented and authorize the chairman to sign.
you have a motion to approve the two amendments as presented and allow the chairman to sign. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up is tab M, which is a request approval for a VSP renewal. And Mr. McLean, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. This is simply the contract for our vision service, part of our health insurance program through VSP or Vision Services plan. We've been with them since '98. There's no changes to the coverage or the rates for this program. Again, this is just one of the components of the overall health insurance program. And I would request and recommend that the board approve the VSP contract as submitted.
Commissioners, your pleasure regarding the approval of the VSP Renewal,
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Toman.
I will make that motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Toman to approve the VSP renewal contract. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Up next, tab N is a request for additional holiday. Mr. McLean, floor is yours.
Thought maybe you were going to sing for us there.
Oh, yeah.
That would be a holiday.
That would be awful.
I did undo the happy holiday.
Oh, heavens. Okay, go ahead, Mr. McLean.
Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, at the November 16th meeting, the board, we'd had a fairly vigorous discussion about recognizing an additional day over the Christmas holiday, and specifically, the board had authorized an 8-hour holiday to be observed on Monday, December 27th. That's in addition to the days that are already part of the county's holidays per policy. And attached to that memo in your packet is a resolution providing for the authority for the board to adopt holidays and the obligation for the county to keep public offices open except for approved holidays. So this is a resolution adding a holiday on the indicated day, December 27th.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Commissioners, any questions? With there being no questions, what's your pleasure regarding a resolution authorizing additional official holidays for county employees for the year 2021?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd,
I would so move.
we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Yeah, I think looking at how we do our holidays and we put out our schedule for the whole year. But when as my 3 years in commission, we always kind of decide the extra day around Christmas later in the year. I wonder if we should actually look at making that decision earlier this year, like in January or February when we put out that schedule, because it might be appeasable to, I know it could become flexible down the year, but I think it would be a good notice for our employees to know what they might be getting during the whole entire Christmas time prior to that. So having that discussion at the beginning of at the beginning of the year, rather than as we get closer to December, could be beneficial to our employees. So just something to think about for the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Lloyd. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Also, there's a potential budget component to that because, as you know, some of the entities, Sheriff's Department in particular, sometimes other entities have to schedule and staff those days. So there are some budget implications. And one of the things that we talked about is addressing these issues during the budget and setting those along with the budget so that all sort of meshes together.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I truly like that and I agree with it, but I'd like to just throw something out there as we think about this is, as you know, if we put that in policy as commissioners, as a sitting board, we're tying future boards into it where those commissioners won't have a say in that. And it's a flexible holiday. It's in that type of thing that the board decides and has an opportunity to look at and award as a sitting board. So as much as I agree with it, is it a good idea for us as a board to make it permanent or continue to leave it to the sitting board at that time? So just food for thought.
Mr. Chairman, I think the discussion at that was really around continuing to have the board approve it or set them, but simply to do it during the budget process. So if there was budget implications for that particular year, they could be entertained as part of the budget process. I don't think the intent was to remove it from the discretion of the individual boards, but rather to do it early enough that number one, people would know, and second, we could budget.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I misunderstood that because then that sitting board would have an opportunity to determine it. I
absolutely
fully agree. I'll take back my comments since it's been cleared. Thank you. All right, commissioners, anything else to comment? So Gary, will you make sure that we have it as part of this budget discussion for next year?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Anything else, commissioners, on the holiday? Okay, moving forward with that. Next up, tab O is a request to amend holiday pay policy. Mr. McLean, floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd,
did we vote? I know we had this, we went into discussion, but I don't know if we officially voted.
Sally,
Move to approve, but it was not asked for the.
vote. All right, thank you. Point of order. We need to go back. Motion, Sally, will you read it again to where we're at?
Commissioner Lloyd so moved. Commissioner Shanefield seconded the motion following discussion.
Okay, very good. All right, discussion is complete. All right, with no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Lloyd. Appreciate that. Up next, under tab O is a request to amend holiday pay policy. Mr. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. At that same November 16th meeting, we discussed the issue kind of the Juneteenth holiday, and there was some concern by the board about adding more days off and trying to find a balance. And following some discussion around those issues, we had discussed allowing a floating holiday to be used either as Columbus Day or in recognition to Juneteenth Day, keeping the courthouse open on both of those days, but allowing department heads to approve a paid day off on one or the other of those days while remaining staffing. We discussed, I think, specifically that the cities and many other agencies with respect to Columbus Day are open. That's been an issue. As you know, here we regularly have people show up at the courthouse for services on those days. And so for different groups, there's different importance to some of these days. This is a way to sort of recognize those without changing the overall total number, but just offering some flexibility regarding the use of that. So what is before you is pursuant to that discussion is as a resolution that primarily does two things. It eliminates Columbus Day as a approved public holiday and instead as a floating holiday day to be used on June 19th or Columbus Day on the second Monday in October, one or the other of those, and then added some language regarding the floating holiday to clarify that policy, specifically that the authorized holidays to be taking on either Juneteenth or Columbus Day. That's an 8-hour holiday to be granted to all county personnel to be used on one or the other of those days. Operations shall be open on both Columbus Day and Juneteenth Day. That the holiday must be used within the calendar year. It's not carried over or accrued. And should either of the holidays fall on the weekend, they should be observed on Friday or Monday in accordance as other holidays currently are within the policy. And attached is a resolution, resolution 21-12-CC-05, implementing that floating holiday concept for Columbus Day or Juneteenth Day,
Okay.
and those changes to the policy.
All right. Thank you, Mr. McLean. Questions for Mr. McLean, commissioners? Commissioner Shanefield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I was, I guess, confused, but I thought that in our discussion that we had talked about allowing them to use a floating holiday anytime during the year instead of just on those 2 days. My concern is that keeping everything open, if half decide they want to use it, I mean,
Sure.
that's going to leave our staff really lean. And I think it allows our employees a little bit more opportunity to use that as they see fit, whenever is best for them, especially since we're taking 2 holidays and combining them into one. Is that possible?
Sure, absolutely.
I do
Sure.
think that we have to keep it within the calendar year and that they lose it if they don't use that floating holiday. And then we would start this in 2022, correct?
Yes, after.
So what would it look like?
So I guess I would, if there's no more questions or concerns, I would make a motion to make an amendment to the presented to utilize the one floating holiday any day during the calendar year rather than just on Juneteenth or Columbus Day.
Okay, let's hold that amendment because we'll have to make a motion to approve the two in a second, and then we come into that discussion and then do an amendment. Okay? That would be the Robert's rules. Are you with me? I'll help you. Go
I
ahead.
think, Mr. Chairman, I think that just for the sake of clarity, I think if the board is more or less on board with that recommendation, then I would just simply come back before the board with the amended resolution. It's important that we have the language down on this. I don't think there's any reason to do this today. We just want to keep the ball moving on this topic. So I'd be happy if there's no action on this item, then I will come back before the board at the first meeting in January with a resolution on that issue, if that's the board's will.
Then let me do this. Let's make sure. Commissioner Tillman, are you in agreement with the change of that Commissioner Sheffield recommend?
I guess I would defer to Gary. It doesn't make a difference to the payroll in your office.
No, there's no issue at all. It's the only question is it narrowed to those 2 days or more broadly throughout the year? So from the county standpoint, the net effect is the same. It just allows employees to decide when they're going to use it as opposed to one or the other of those days. So it makes no difference. That's just a policy question. And
I guess I don't have a problem with it. I do want to point out, though, for the public record, that each day that we don't have this courthouse open, we are paying payroll of $95,000 to core government. Each day that we are not working, it's costing the county $95,000 just for core government. So I just kind of want to point that out. So we're looking like $250,000 if you figure 12 holidays and some vacation time. So just to keep things in perspective.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Lloyd, are you okay with the change?
Yeah, I'm okay. And I think and I agree with, want to reiterate what Commissioner Thomas said, but I think what we're doing in really conglomerating two holidays between Columbus and Juneteenth really keeps it budget neutral from the past, if I'm not mistaken at this point. And what I like is it does provide our employees choice. And I think that's an important thing at times.
Well, and
at all times, but yeah, I shouldn't say that. So.
And I believe Commissioner Tolman, even on floating holidays, when you take people that use Columbus Day for a day off, you're still going to have a total of $95,000 that the county is going to spend. We're just keeping the building open. So there's not going to be any costs change.
Oh, I just wanted to point that out.
So so it's even with these positions of floating holidays, there's still that cost when you add up it being used. So Mr. McLean, if you'd be kind enough to prepare the changes and bring them back to the next meeting, please.
no, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to postpone that like we did our other motion? Should we make a motion to postpone or just take no action? Okay.
Yeah, no action. All right, with that, we move into the next component. Mr. McLean, before you leave, will we be able to start at our next meeting to begin continuing policy reviews?
Yeah, we'll have policies every
meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We had a couple cleanups this one
I
from
know
the
we
last
did.
one. So
I appreciate that, but let's keep moving forward with that. I think the commission wishes to do that as well. All right, with that, and that's scheduled for after 11:10, and we're way ahead of schedule. Let's take a break for about 10 minutes because then we can come back and start early. It's okay. Nothing else on our agenda has a timeline. But we want to have that discussion that we added to the agenda under other, and then we'll come back. After that, we'll go into executive session and with personnel, then legal, and then contracts. Commissioner Toman, anything under pre-decisional?
No, not this.
All right, so we'll make sure that
Chairman?
when we go, we pull that, okay? All right, with that, 10-minute break, be back here at 5 minutes to 11. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting back to order, and our next other agenda item is a discussion regarding fire department kind of direction and that type of thing. I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to turn the floor over to either Commissioner Lloyd or Commissioner Toman. This was a topic that we requested to be put on this morning. We do know that we have our fire warden, Chief Bornasian, here this morning also to help out. And I believe the discussion is where we want to head for the future is what I'm hearing. Am I correct, Commissioner Toman?
Yes, I think at the last meeting, we asked to have a committee together and have Mr. Bornasian and the other fire chiefs in the county that we form a committee and address how we can maybe streamline county fire. So we don't get so heavily involved in a big, huge department and expenses. So I think the goal would be to form a committee that can meet with all of them and with your assistance to help us to figure out a way to go forward.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Lloyd?
Yeah, just reiterate. I think the thought is can we find, is to take an evaluation of county fire and say, is it running as efficiently as it can be? Is there other ways we can look at things through contracting, mutual aid agreements, and finding the direction that we should be going? And I think I actually had a chance to meet with Attorney De Leon yesterday to make sure some of my thought process were legally on the right way. But I think finding a committee and maybe involving some of our local fire chiefs, such as Green River, Kitchener District 1, Jim Wamsley at Rock Springs Fire. I mean, they'd have to be willing to. We'd have to approach them and ask them if they'd be willing to kind of help be part of that analysis and do an analysis to determine what the best nature and best concept would be to move forward with two concepts. Coming up with a recommendation is taking a look at the current configuration, financially, effectiveness, efficiency, and is it the best way to go, or is there another way to go, such as just working in cooperation with the other organizations, and making a recommendation between those two. And with that being said, there could always be a third recommendation of, hey, as we looked at things, we saw this occur, and this is an idea, but really charging them with, hey, take a look at these two specific things, letting know what else you see, and moving forward and setting some time dates, some expectations within meeting with them, finding time dates, but also timelines that are appropriate for them to work through things. And I think that would be an appropriate way to start, in my opinion.
So it's pretty well, could be a long-term study. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I think we could have an initial meeting and see what their thoughts are. I met with Chief Bernasian last week, and one of the thoughts I've had, and I wanted to meet with Warden with Mike the other day to let him know kind of where I stood, is within some of our mutual aid agreements and also some contracting opportunities, could we become more efficient in cost and still offer the same services just by working with the other organizations? And that could be a shorter term move. And it may not take as long to go into, to be honest. So I think it would be, but I'm also a non-fire guy. So I'm looking at it more from a business and from the statute piece of the puzzle. So my thought is by bringing in those other guys also to be part of our organization and discussion, it brings us that knowledge base, because I think sometimes as commissioners, we will lead committees and lead groups that we may not really know what we're doing because we may not be advised in that area. But I think we have some really good knowledgeable people in this community that we could reach out and ask for some assistance that they would be willing to help and discuss with us.
Okay, very good. What else?
Well, I wouldn't mind hearing from Mr. Bornasian. I think in concept, he probably agrees with us, but I know he's worked really hard to build what we do have. It's just that as we move forward financially, we've got to start looking at other alternatives for some of these programs that we have. So.
Well, and as much as I agree with everything, one of the crazy things about it is it's a public safety program. And if you take a look at our other public safety, public response, first response, ambulance, law enforcement, and fire, when we look at costs, they just continually rise and get higher all the time. And it's only because we want to make sure we're staffed so we can take care of the needs of the people that are out there, as well as the taxpayers that pay taxes for these types of services. They're getting the services they're paying for rather than their services being neglected. So I agree to look at it, and I agree to looking for a long-term fix. I truly believe that Mike and I have talked about also, as well as talked with other chiefs about moving to a countywide fire department and that type of thing. I do know that we do have a district out there that said they would not play in our sandbox. I've been told that already by their chief, and that's okay. We just need to know where the edges are. If somebody doesn't want to play in the sandbox, I'm a little reluctant to have them part of the committee, other commissioners, even though they have great ideas. That's just my personal feeling. But that truly doesn't mean that's the way it's got to go. I'm just a little bit reluctant. It's kind of like having a private company involved in designing services for government. If you let them evolve to push it in a direction that satisfies them. So that type of thing. So that's just my thoughts. The thing I would be also caution is, we do know contracting services, whether it's with a fellow governmental group, city, town, or whatever, as those costs rise, it costs us more money, and sometimes we're held hostage, and we get to the point where we begin to ask ourselves, it would have been cheaper to maintain our own department rather than to contract services. So that's something that's got to be watched and be careful as we move forward. But I truly believe that if we're talking about moving forward and that type of thing, I think Mike might have a suggestion that or suggestions, and would truly be able to help us with that. Also, though, as we move forward, commissioners, we still have a responsibility to maintain public safety services in the areas we're responsible for. And as those times take place, if or when we choose to look at a new model or implement it, it could involve some reductions in staff and that type of thing. So keep that in mind, that that could occur, which is a natural attrition. And those types of things we need to keep in mind. So I'm sure as we talk more, I'll have more questions and some cautions, but at the same token, they are to be ignored as you move forward, if you so choose. So with that, what else, Commissioner, before you ask Mr. Bornasian to come forward?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd.
I want to make sure it's very clear that I don't want to move forward in any direction that would be a detriment to public safety and our constituents. And that's why I think taking a real sound look at this and starting to share ideas, visit with folks, and make a direction is the best way to go. And those have to be factors as we make a decision. Is it has to be number one is in the constituents. You brought up this morning when we were talking about the Salmon Run subdivision, the county fire would be the ones responsible and how there were houses. But if I remember right, that we also have an agreement with Manila, which does have a very small fire department that could also help, in which we get there much quicker than we ever would. And also, if I remember also right, in Chief Bernays, in Warden Bernasian's 2015, he shared with us from the strategic plan, and it kind of talked about how it was at that point, it was more the current county fire setup was more wildland and support from the other agencies. They would support the other agencies in the structural piece, which I don't think has been changed, or that direction's been changed. So some of that's already in place. So those are things I think we can also look at. But I also think, you know, the key is just putting some good minds together and coming up with recommendations and moving forward. And we may find out this is the best way to go. And if that's the best way we go, then we did our due diligence. We did our job.
Oh, I agree.
And that's the way I look at it.
No, I agree with you. I don't have any issue with it. I just want to make sure that the services that we can provide, or the services that are needed in those areas, even with our mutual agreements. Yes, Manila, you know, that's a good example. Manila can respond. They're small, but at the same token, once we arrive, you're exactly right. We assist. And that does involve possibly residential, more so than wildland, or wildland and residential. So you're exactly right. I just, you know, we got to make sure that, you know, we stay with our primary, and also have be prepared and be equipped with the backup. And I think that's where Mike has our department going. I mean, if you talk to the wrong people, they'll make it look like it's purely residential and moving in that direction, but it's not true. It's wildfire. Even when we respond, and Mike will be able to share this with us, but we respond to an interstate fire. We're there for, hopefully, you know, we're getting there about the time the other department is there for extrication and that type of thing, but we're there for the wildland piece. If there happens to be something that may occur that starts a fire in the borough ditch or in the right of way, that may flow into either public or private land. So I agree that we're doing our due diligence, and we don't want to move away from that, or make sure that those things are covered as we work as a combined agency. Would you agree, commissioners? I guess you don't agree.
No, I'm sure. Yes.
I was listening for a word, and I'm going, wait a minute, maybe they don't agree.
I nonverbal.
Talking through my hat. All right, with that, would you like to have Chief Bordenazing come up to the stand and visit with us? All right, Chief, come on up. Good morning.
Good morning, commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you this morning and talk about the fire department. I always appreciate the opportunity to talk about the fire department. I don't think we talk about the fire department enough. I'd like to start out by first, at the request of HR and a very extensive meeting I had yesterday, there's been called into question, what has county fire done in the past? What is county fire? Where was county fire? Who is county fire? So we are a wildland fire department. That is our primary purpose based upon the direction this board has given me. And during my 3-hour interview, it was made very clear. However, with that being said, that is our primary duty. But the county fire department has always responded to, protected, and suppressed fires other than wildland fire. They have suppressed structure fires, commercial vehicle fires, residential fires, oil and gas well fires. And at the request approved that by HR, I brought 3 binders of photos going back 30 years that clearly illustrate what county fire has done visually and has always done and had the equipment to do so. So I hope we can put that to rest. The second thing is that when I was hired by this board, There was discussion prior to my hiring about whether or not county fire should continue or explore other options. I don't know what led to or what discussions took place. All I know was that this board decided to move forward and refill the vacant county fire warden position for a fire department that at that time had basically one person keeping the lights on over the winter. Prior to that, this county's had several county fire wardens, all with structural certification and backgrounds as myself. For the last 6 years, I have kept true to what this board has asked me to do. Basically rebuild the fire department. We started with a rebranding and we completely gutted the facility. We have less apparatus than we had when I was hired to take over. We have less support vehicles than when I was hired. We have less personnel than when I was hired. And let me illustrate that because I know that's a topic of question. Prior to my tenure, county fire department had a couple seasonals, a full-time county fire warden and a full-time deputy county fire warden. They had 28 volunteer firefighters that were paid when they went to fires. I did my research when I first came here to try to figure out the history and talk to the previous county fire warden. And we have one volunteer that came back to us, Mr. Mike Moon. I believe Mike's got 25 years in, and extensively talked to Mike about things in the past. We're doing a more efficient job now than when I was hired. We're doing it with less personnel. We're doing it with less equipment. We are doing it at a higher cost. Now, with that being said, when I came before this board that rotates every 2 years, I'm still the same guy. We're still the same fire department, but I have new leadership. I drafted a strategic plan outline, you might say, trying to get some ground as to where this fire department, I feel, should move and what some of the long-term outlooks would be to make it successful based on my experience up to that point. I've held true to that. I've not wavered from that. I still believe in that today. And I did mention and do believe there is an opportunity somewhere down the road to look for and work towards some form or fashion of a fire organization, whether you call it a district or a department, that some of us that are separate now could come together. And I support that concept. One of the first questions I had is how's the county laid out? So if you just bear with me for a minute, I'll try not to take too much time. But I think this is important to go on the record because I know I got other chiefs watching me right now and some public and some of my folks are wondering if they're going to have a job. So to that extent, we came up with the understanding that there is 10,600 square miles that make up Sweetwater County. According to the map I have from the county, 65% is federal land. It's checkerboarded. There is 6,700 square miles of unincorporated lands within the county. That means they are without fire protection. They are not paying a tax directly for fire protection. They're outside the two primary fire districts, which are Sweetwater County Fire District number 1 and Eden Farson Fire District. There are a couple other very small fire districts that contract. They're very small and isolated. Reliance area is one, the Jamestown area is another. Then you have the 2 city fire departments, obviously operate within the city. The county fire department responds to and has that 6,700 square miles. There are 400 residential structures, homes, cabins, hotels, a myriad of things I've learned, and working with the county and getting some information. There's over 400 in the unincorporated area of the county. There's an additional 1,000 private structures, not counting oil and gas or industry. These are residential structures, barns, cabins, sheds, storage buildings, shops, garages, restaurants, industry, and small business that are in the unincorporated area of the county. We respond to and have a primary response and have been wildland fires in the county, in the unincorporated area of the county. My predecessors ran the county fire department much differently than I did. The one prior to my tenure was short-lived, didn't make it a year. He was released by this board. Prior to my tenure, you had a deputy county fire warden suffer severe burns over 30% of her body from an accident, directly related to training and experience. We run, as far as I'm concerned, a professional fire department that's efficient and cost effective at the best and most adequate staffing level we can. We face several challenges in the outlying areas of the county because we have to drive through a city and through a fire district to get to our primary response area, which is the unincorporated area of the county. Primarily, that is the eastern third of Sweetwater County, the southern quarter, I guess, of Sweetwater County, and the western third quarter of Sweetwater County. Is all unincorporated. With that being said, the equipment that we have purchased through your approval and your assistance and your direction as a board has not increased our fleet. It has only replaced inadequate, overweight, obsolete equipment. That includes a structure engine that we had when I came here. We had a structural firefighting engine. We had a structural firefighting engine that was also a water tender, okay, pumper tender. We had command buses. We had all kinds of stuff. I got rid of all of it. So my question to you is, as I come before you today, if you look at my budget for the county fire department, in 2018, I asked for an increase to adequately staff our seasonals because we need to staff 7 days a week during the primary fire season. And I went to a staggering structure, how to stagger those seasonals. And this board approved that. In the last 3 years, my budget has not increased. My personnel has not increased. Payroll has increased only due to insurance. Over the last 3 years, my total budget has declined. I've reduced my budget 3 years consecutively. I have a plan, had I been afforded the opportunity to talk about seasonal hiring today, to reduce my budget up to another $50,000. Because I know the challenges you're faced with and the concerns you have over our staffing. I believe I can do that without losing seasonals and just changing our structure and our staffing, length of hiring. Our seasonals are hired to work up to 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months. Doesn't mean they work that entire time. I would say 90% of them do not. Depending on the fire season, conditions, other things, life. They're generally let go before they have a full tenure of what we budget. That helps, of course, with covering other costs associated with payroll, like overhead and callback hours, mandatory overtime when they're called back to work. I've also been asked by Commissioner Lloyd specifically to reduce my overtime. I've reduced my overtime in half. And I've done that without changing our model, our staffing model. I believe I can reduce our budget again for a fourth consecutive year. I also want to paint a little bit of a picture briefly on Sweetwater County's fire department, the county fire warden. There is no other county in the state of Wyoming like us in the fire service. There are 9 fire departments or agencies within Sweetwater County, 7 fire departments, the Ashley National Forest and the Bureau of Land Management. Okay, now you have Bear Oil Fire Department, Ranger Fire Department, Wamsutter Fire Department, and then of course you have the districts and the cities and Superior Fire Department. We coordinate with all those departments. We do it continually, and we have since I've been here. I can attest to you that wasn't being done prior to my arrival. All right. Not only do we work with those entities continuously on a myriad of subjects, from fire prevention to suppression to loaning each other equipment, but we also communicate with, on a regular basis, I communicate with, and our department works with, Carbon County, Fremont County, Sublette County, Lincoln County, Uinta County, 5 other counties that I've achieved mutual aid agreements with because they were not in place prior. Carbon County was, and we pay them $15,000 a year to help come across the county line. We also work with and respond into a very small portion of Summit County, Utah, Daggett County, Utah, and Moffett County, Utah, as well as Daggett and Moffett coming into our county. There is no other fire department in the state that has this responsibility or communication. We also work with our local dispatch center, 911 center. We work with and communicate with on a regular basis, Casper Fire Dispatch. It's the Interagency Federal Dispatch Center. And we have to communicate with, because of the Ashley National Forest being the border of the gorge, Vernal Interagency Fire Dispatch Center. We are tasked with a great responsibility just in our communications alone, more so than any other department in our county. I feel we have good relations, and when there are issues and those issues arrive, they're dealt with and they're communicated, and we move forward. When you talk about the unincorporated area of the county, 26 of the 30 largest tax contributors to this county are in the unincorporated area of the county. You're talking $80 million in revenue to the county and state. So there's a lot of oil and gas wells. Working with Dave, trying to get a firm number, but I can assure you, talking to industry, the number is anywhere from 15,000 to 3,500 active or inactive oil and gas wells. My best estimate, based on county mapping and off our server and other data that I've collected over the years, there is about, I'm estimating about 2,700 to 3,000 oil and gas wells in the unincorporated area of the county. Every time we have a wildland fire, people ask me, what do we care about a fire out in the middle of nowhere? We care because industry responds and has to shut in that well or that pipeline. That's a loss of revenue to someone. And I'm sure in the bottom end of things, it affects us. There are 13 major oil, gas, high pressure transportation lines that run across and through the entire length of Sweetwater County. Most of it in the unincorporated area follows the I-80 corridor. So you can imagine how it's broken up. We also have the railroad that we respond to. and always have and always will, along with interstate commerce. My philosophy when I got here was Green River Fire Department was responding and is responding and still is responding and will be responding to the western portion of the unincorporated area of the county. I don't know how many times I have to say that. They are and they will. We rely on them because they're closer and they do a wonderful job. When they come out of their jurisdiction, the city of Green River, it's through a mutual aid agreement. We have a mutual aid agreement with the city of Rock Springs, Fire District 1, Green River Fire, and ourselves. All 4 entities signed it prior to my arrival. So when one of us has a fire, we have an agreement to cover us liability-wise and explains our cost for us coming and helping each other out. This never come into question. Green River Fire automatically responds. We don't request mutual aid just because that's the way they've operated, and that's the way we keep it today. All I've asked for is that we respond to back them up. We respond in the event somehow they need help. They still have a primary responsibility to cover the city of Green River. Most of the responses they go to in that county are one truck or one wildland engine and officer. On their working fires, they send a second truck. First truck usually has 5 or 6 guys, excellent firefighters, excellent people, well qualified. We've had instances where we've worked with Green River Fire in the unincorporated area of the county on a couple different fires where we've had to engage and assist and have to have structural PPE, which we do, SCBAs, which we do. And it also allows them to return back to their area earlier. So we stay and continue mop up and overhaul the dirty work after they've done a great job in containing that fire to a certain area. By statute, every fire is to be investigated. It's not their jurisdiction to investigate a fire. They can if they choose to, but it comes back on the county to do that and ensure it's done. So we work really closely with them. We have our differences of how we do business, but in the end, we respond, we take care of the nature of the call, and we provide customer service, because in the end, that's what this is about, is providing customer service to our constituents, to the county. So 2 weeks ago, or at your last commissioner meeting, it came up about a question about, I asked to restaff 2 current vacancies that were already approved in my budget. They're the only 2 full-time positions I have outside the fire warden positions. And it came into question that we don't have to statutorily provide fire department services to the county, and we need to look at our dollars. And are we being effective and efficient? And if we're not required to do it, then maybe we shouldn't be. So my questions for the board are, 1, this board revolves every 2 years. I get different guidance. This board approved the construction of a $6 million fire station. That was a great motivating factor for recruitment, retention, the future of our department, and showing that this county had a vested interest in moving forward in the fire service. That was to be a joint project with Public Works for a total project of $20 million. Then the board changed. And then the board said, we don't support that, and we're not going to move forward with that. So I got a different direction. So we're still in the same building we've been in, which is not adequate, but we make the best of it. But it's not a healthy environment. It's not the best environment. Something needs to change for sure. And now here we are 2 years later, and we've had a change in the board. All due respect, Commissioner Tolman, I appreciate your conservative responsibilities that you bring to the table, and question about whether or not we should even provide this service, since you're not obligated to. My question is there a financial shortfall that I'm not aware of that we can't support the fire department in the $700,000 budget, of which we return annually $100,000 back to the county? for 6 years, we've brought $600,000 into the county. That's expenses out of my line item budget that do not go back into my budget. They go back to the county. That's payroll costs covered at 100% loaded. So for every hour a fire pays for me or one of our firefighters, it's an hour of pay this county does not have to pay for. Our equipment on certain billable fires, we can charge to the fire and we get compensated for that. We average over the 6 years so far since we started doing this, 600,000, 100,000 a year we bring back in. So at the end, my cost, the cost to the county taxpayer for a fire department that covers 6,700 square miles is roughly $600,000. So if it's not a question of a shortfall or budget, is it a question of trust? Has something changed in this board that as a department head that was hired here, I'm no longer trusted to do my job at the best interest of this board and of the taxpayer? If it's not that, then the third question is, what is it? And why now? Why the fire department? This is the time to hire seasonals to come back and work. We have to compete with all the other entities. The federal government is raising the minimum pay for wildland firefighters to $15 an hour. They also get overtime after 40, hazard pay, things we don't offer. Our wildland firefighters don't get overtime till after they put in 210 hours in a 30-day period. Because that's just what we inherit and that's what HR says we do, so that's what we do. It's very hard to compete with some of those entities. If we don't hire seasonals this time of year, the good ones, the ones we'd like to have back, are going to wonder if there's a job with us next summer, or they're going to go somewhere else. We also have taken the responsibility of training the Fire Law Leadership Academy at Rock Springs High School in wildland firefighting and instructing them basic wildland. So when they graduate, the seniors that are interested can graduate with the qualifications of a wildland red card and go to work for any agency in the United States as a wildland firefighter. We've been fortunate enough to pick up a couple of those every year. And this year, the interest quadrupled. We have 18 students that want to come and take the red card class. We're going to have to split that up. It takes staff to do that and commitment. And we recruit from those kids. In the spring is not the time to be looking for our firefighters. So I understand why you may not have wanted to address that today, but I just, I ask that if we are to move forward, I support the discussion of how to improve the fire service in Sweetwater County as a whole, but not at the cost of our department, until we know our options and we can move forward. Because we do a good job. We do a cost-effective job. So I would love to work with you. I'd love to work with a committee. But I only ask that we continue to do our job effectively and efficiently. And I'll sit down with any one of you to go over staffing, budget, line by line, if you have questions about that. But please don't do it at the expense of trying to hire for next summer. Fire season will come and we need to be ready and we have a plan. So let's move forward in a fashion that allows us to please continue our business if you feel we're doing a good job. And if you don't, then I don't have an answer for you. So I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Chief Bornasian. Commissioner Tolman.
Yes, you didn't mention BLM, which is at 65% federal land. And
Yes, ma'am.
this new CMAQ Center, how you interact with that and the role that they play, which is major, I know.
How do we interact with them?
Yes.
So thank you for asking that question, Mr. Tolman. The Bureau of Land Management is based out of the Rock Springs District. They staff 3 wildland engines to cover, well, excuse me. They staff 3 engines out of Rock Springs. They staff 3 engines out of Rawlins to cover all of southern Wyoming and southwest Wyoming. So just in our county alone, and there are times where they're out on other fires. The BLM has the luxury, though, of calling in additional resources. And it all goes on a fire code. They use fire codes, federal funds to staff all that. We don't have that luxury. The BLM could question why I send 2 fire trucks and a water tender to a smoke report because it takes an hour to get there. And if we get there and need them, they're there. If it gets bigger, they can call federal agencies and other resources that take longer to get there, but it doesn't come out of their line item budget. So I ask you, 6 years, this board has paid $18,000 in suppression costs. I think we're doing pretty good with our response. And how we work with the BLM. We rely on them heavily, Commissioner Tolman. They are the funding mechanism for our larger wildland fires.
We have MOUs with them, don't we?
You sign and I sign an annual operating plan every year.
Right.
That clearly outlines that. And yes, ma'am. And we've actually gotten almost all the fire departments in the county now to sign on. In case a wildland fire threatens that community, they're now a player. Green River Fire did not used to be a signatory to it. Now they are. We've worked really well to get more signatures on that. And that defines, Commissioner Tolman, our responsibilities as well. And in that annual operating plan, it is the authority having jurisdiction, the local jurisdiction's responsibility to protect private structures on federal land. So all the oil and gas wells, all the leases, all on federal land, it's not the BLM's responsibility to pay for the protection of those. It's their responsibility to try to prevent the fire from getting there, but it's not their responsibility to protect them. And we have to have the resources to do that.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Lloyd.
Yeah, first, just a clarification on a couple of things and a couple of questions we'll hit too, but I want to clarify on the approval of the Lagoon Road project with the fire department. When we first made that decision, there were actually 4 commissioners, 5, there was Commissioner Wendling, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Smith, and I, and that was a joint project between a building for maintenance and also Public Works and also fire department. When that changed and we decided not to build that building, that was to not build both of meetings, and it was really the same majority of the conglomeration, the 4 that made that decision, and Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Wendling, Commissioner Smith, and I. The only difference was Commissioner Van Meter was in on that first one, and Commissioner Shaenfeld was in on that second one. And that move, so that really wasn't a major change in commission that made that move. It was a huge financial change where we saw a significant shift in our financials that year, and our ability to build a $22 million building really became non-ability because that would have taken our reserves down to a point of, I think, $13 or $14 million, I think, if I'm right, but I'd have to look back. So I just want to clarify that. I would agree that it would probably be very difficult to have your bosses change every couple of years in the directions they're going. And I'll tell you, sometimes even when you come in as a new commissioner, you don't even know the directions they're going because there's really no how-to manual and there's really not anything of, hey, here's where we're at and this is where we're going. It's really truly a baptism by fire when you come in. So I can see the difficulty. The second was you mentioned you mentioned the question was, should we not provide the services? I don't think that's the question. The question is there a different way to do it? And I think that's based upon the fact that, and you threw out some numbers, Chief Bernasian, how there were 25 paid volunteers and your numbers are down because we have 16 seasonal, so even though the total number's down, the paid number and the dollar amount, I don't know what the differences were. That'd be interesting to look at. But I don't think the question is, do we need to do it? It's, are we doing it the right way? And is there different ways to do it by looking at statute? And what I've said is I'd like to set a committee, take a look. And if we find out this is the best way we do it, we move forward. If not, we take a look at those recommendations. And so I don't think it's a question in that. And for me, I don't think it's a question in trust in those concepts as just, hey, we need to evaluate the process. And we've shown that as a commission. We've evaluated a lot of processes in the last 2 or 3 years in the way we do things and made some changes to some people have liked, some people haven't, but that's what our job is. So I want to put it there too. And that's where I just wanted to respond to those things. And so my intent is to look at and say, is there a different way of doing things the way we are and moving forward that way? And we may find out the best way to move forward is the way we are. We may find out there's a different way no one has looked at, but I do believe we should take a look at that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments, commissioners?
It's just part of being responsible and getting the commission to start looking way out ahead. I mean, we're making decisions day to day as they hit us, but we need to get long-term, really look out ahead. Is this the best process? Is this the most financially feasible? I don't know. We've heard different alternatives. So really, I'd like to put a pause on it until January and get the chiefs together in the meantime and look at some options and then either move forward or don't.
When you say put a pause on it, what do you mean?
Not to do any hiring until January. I don't see the difference of what 2 weeks' time is going to make. And I know you're trying to get way ahead of the game, but I don't think it's going to be that much of a hardship to wait till January to move forward on all of that hiring.
What do you, I know what you're saying, but for me, answer, what do you want to get done in the next 2 weeks?
Visit with the chiefs and see if there are some opportunities to try to do some joint agreements or a longer term plan for the county.
Okay,
Whether it happens in the short term or the long term, that we at least have that discussion.
Okay, so
Kind of hold up until we can get some more
you
information.
believe in the next 2 weeks that those discussions can take place? And because our next meeting is on Monday, January, what, 4th? 3rd? Just a minute.
I don't know.
I'll look.
We could try.
Well, we can't try and then not be successful and put it off longer. I mean, I agree with your concept. I'm just struggling with your limitations of time where fires are going to show up and we don't have a plan.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd.
to me, the next step would be as if the whole commission agrees that we would move forward with setting a committee and having an initial meeting with them to maybe get some possible timelines and dates to work with. Because I also would struggle that I think it would be hard to come up with a solution to this in 2 weeks with it is the holiday season. And I think the other piece of the puzzle is I think sometimes as a commission, we've done one of two things. We've either made decisions really fast without vetting things out, or we've just not made decisions at times and it's taken a little longer. So I think making sure we put a process in to do the fair review is the most important way. And having that initial meeting and being able to have discussion regarding which direction we should move and what recommendations are, then that would be from our initial meetings, we could start setting those timeframes that we're talking about.
Okay, that's one thing, but I also heard about staffing in there. Where are you with staffing? Commissioner Lloyd.
If it comes to the table, I'll make that decision at that time. At this point, we didn't have a motion. We didn't have a second to have that discussion today.
Well, yeah, but with Commissioner Toman, if I understood you correctly, you want to hold off with staffing until you have a plan.
Until that committee has had a chance to meet. And I think I asked for that committee at the last meeting. So we've already lost 2 weeks.
And I offered to you to sit on a committee, as well as Mr. Lloyd, and both declined because you have plenty to do.
No, I don't think that is quite an accurate statement.
Well, maybe you didn't decline, but Commissioner Lloyd did so, but you didn't volunteer.
Yeah. Commissioner Lloyd said that, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah.
I'm just asking, just for clarification, I'm simply asking to post the advertisement to receive applications for seasonal wildland firefighters. Nothing about hiring. We do that. We have traditionally done that before the board around February. It's to get the advertisements out because the federal wildland fire services start in November and they close the first of the year, generally speaking. So that's what I was seeking to have done today. So I'm not sure if that was communicated clearly or not. So I apologize if it wasn't, but that was.
I don't know if it was or wasn't or what we heard, but I will say, you know, it's bias and that type of thing. So it'll be a request to advertise for hiring when it comes before us. And as I work with Sally to organize the agenda, you as a board will get the opportunity to approve that agenda or amend it when that time comes. With that, let's back up for a minute. So a committee, I guess that's what I'm hearing. Okay, Commissioner Toman, would you like to chair that committee?
Well, if that's what it takes, we need to.
Okay, that's
we need
fine.
to start.
Well, I think in the past, here's the thing. This is not just, I mean, I understand the committee of where to move and where to go and what it could look like. What are you thinking, Mike? Okay, very good. I'm kind of watching to see if there's something you want to add or not, but anyhow, I think it's a committee, just like you said, hey, let's explore and see where we need to go. If that committee moves to say, hey, let's look at a unified department for the county, that's too big a lift for you, Chairman Toman, or any other chairman or any other commissioner. That's a huge lift. I think that's because you're talking about establishing funding. You're talking about establishing what it's going to look like, and just, it's huge. Yeah. Am I wrong, Chief? No. Come on up.
No, sir. I've been through this once before as chief of a combination department in Nevada, and it takes a tremendous undertaking, but it can be done, and we did do it. We actually dissolved my fire department to be taken in by the fire district because that was what better served the community and got them 24/7 fire and paramedic coverage. And I moved back to Montana. So, but it took us about a year and a half. We had to have a special election.
All right. Does that understand? So if it goes that direction, then we need to come together, because I think that's I would personally believe that's too big a lift for any one commissioner.
Well, I would certainly not do it myself, but I think we need to get those energies together to start get some recommendations, and we shouldn't be sitting up in here as board members in a vacuum without that background, that information. So I can see that it would take a bit of time, but we are 7 months out from the new year also.
Okay. I guess you've got your charge. We'll look forward to seeing some answers.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd.
I'll just throw it out there, Commissioner Toman, if you need assistance, I'd be more than glad. I feel a little overwhelmed with all the extra assignments I have at this point. I'm not going to be honest. I will be honest, but to help move things forward, I would be willing to be part of a solution.
Very good. And I'm sure Chief Bornasian will be able to help assist. Okay.
Yes.
All right. We'll look forward to see what you find out. Anything else regarding this agenda item, commissioners?
No.
No.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your work on it. Thank you, Mike. Before we go into executive session, I'd like to welcome in our audience, former Commissioner Gary Bailiff. Good morning, Mr. Bailiff. Welcome. Good to see you. All right. Merry Christmas. All right. With that, anything else under other? I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for the following topics of personnel, legal, and contracts. We'll go legal first, contract second, and then we'll go to personnel third, okay? Because Commissioner Shanefield may not be able to join us till then. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for executive session.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd.
I'd move that we move into executive session for the items discussed.
I
We
would
got it.
second that.
Okay, I have a motion and seconded, move into executive session. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries. All righty, do you guys need a break? Probably should.